That's the wrong one, Vic, you fool. There we go. Mike, right. Let's see. No, mute. Mute the stream, Vic, you moron. There we go. How's everybody doing? I just realised that I've timetabled this way too early. Half an hour early. I don't know why I scheduled it to start half an hour before the actual meeting. Probably to get the levels and all that right. So, here we are at Meet the Lindens, the first one of the week. They've already got some of the stage set up, actually. Let's have a look here. Very Art Deco background. I like what they've done with that. They've got some champagne. Anyone notice something still missing? Cake. Yes. Right. Give me a minute. I need to pop out chat. And then I'm going to move you over there. Live chat there. I can minimise you and then I can switch you over by switching that off. There we go. But yeah, I like what they've done. Very, very... Oh, they've even got the lights. Look at that. Look at that. But yeah, they've still got no cake in the stage, which is a big letdown. I got a little bit of criticism for the opening ceremony video that I done. Just a little bit of criticism, but you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and my opinion of the opening ceremony was no, just no. And it wasn't just my opinion; a lot of other people were thinking the same as well. But here we are, meet the Lindens, and this time we are going to be meeting Philip Rosedale, better known as Philip Linden. And in chat, we've got King Clown. How you doing, King? And we've got Tabitha Hexam. How you doing, Tabitha? Don't have a clue what Philip's going to be talking about in this one, because I missed SL23B because I wasn't around in it. I was in hospital for most of SL23B, so I had no idea what Philip was talking about last year. With any luck. And I'm hoping, where is this? It's Basel. It's in what's the name of the region? Hold on, I'll bring it up in stream. SLB Astonished, SLB Imagination, SLB Amaze, or SLB Celebrate. It's in the bottom corner, right? So I'm down here, down there. It's the bottom left-hand corner of the SLB series maps. But I mean, don't have a clue what Philip's going to be talking about. Hopefully he's going to be touching on a couple of tech subjects. One of them being, and no doubt Linden Lab have heard of these rumours that are going around, one of them being that NVIDIA, who basically run about 90% of the graphics cards that are being used to essentially run computers, NVIDIA are reportedly going to be depreciating the entire OpenGL API and graphics stack for all NVIDIA graphics cards by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, which essentially means that if the stories are true, and the sources I've got, they're usually true, not always, but usually true. And so if the story being reported is correct, it means by the end of this year and the beginning, like January, February of 2027, no future graphic driver update for any NVIDIA card, whether it be the old GTX or whether it be the new RTX series cards, no driver updates are going to take into consideration OpenGL in any of its forms, in any of its version numbers, or in any of its APIs. Apple have already decided to do this, so I think it's from the end of this year. In fact, I think it might be actually happening now, but I know that Apple's already decided to depreciate OpenGL. And this, can you put link of location? Hold on, Basil. The link's going to be probably on my lap because I can't actually move. But I'll give you a slurl to where I am, and I'll pop it in chat. There you go, Basil. That's it in chat. You'll probably land directly on top of me. But this basically presents Linden Lab with a very big problem, because if the stories are true and there is depreciation that's going to go on with the OpenGL library stack and all of the OpenGL APIs, it means that NVIDIA can release a driver update, let's say in summer of 2027, which breaks half of OpenGL to the point that the Second Life viewers, whether it be Firestorm, whether it be CoolVL, whether it be Genesis, or whether it be the standard vanilla Linden Lab viewer, doesn't work. And NVIDIA doesn't need to fix it. That's a big problem for Linden Lab. They have had ample opportunity to shift to the Vulkan stack, which essentially is OpenGL 2.0. That's what Vulkan basically is. They've had ample opportunity to switch to the Vulkan API stack, but they've refused. So, hopefully, Mr. Philip Linden decides to address some of those worries, because they are becoming worries. Very big worries. Anyway, let's have a blue name watch. Oh, what am I doing with this camera? There we go. Let's have a blue name watch, see if anyone with blue names is hanging around. We'll start from the right and we'll work our way left, shall we? Any names I recognise? Nope. Moving on. My mouse is in the way. Hold on, let's move you out the way. That's better. Oh, there's Michelle. I haven't seen Michelle for ages, and she's sitting right next to me. Michelle Licon. I haven't seen Michelle for ages. Oh, there's me, by the way. Whoops. Too close, Vic. There's me, with the bunny on the shoulder, as always. I am seeing a blue name. It's the first blue name of the day. Who have we got? We've got It's a Mole. There's Itza. Only one blue name so far. Mind you, we're still 20 minutes out, so the rest of them are probably still on their way. Moving up. Hold on, there's Sarah. There's Sarah. Got to give Sarah a close-up. Surprised she's not holding a sign. Sarah usually holds a sign at one of these. What are we doing? That's it. One blue name. Anybody up in the expensive seats? Maybe there's Lindens up here hiding away. Is that one? Nope. What the? Wow, that's a tall avatar. Look at the size of that avatar. Oh, hold on. Draw distance is too low. Let's drag you back up. There we go. That's a big avatar. I've seen avatars that height before. I don't know how they do it. Honestly, I don't know how they managed to stretch the avatar out that big. That's a tall avatar. Good grief. Oh, hold on. There's another one. We've got a Lotta. Is that a Lotta? Yeah, we've got a Lotta mole hiding away in the corner. Anything going on round here? Oh, we've got Errol Flynn. There's a name from the past. Talking about the golden age of Hollywood. Errol Flynn. There's a name for you. Errol Flynn, Whitney Houston, SL. Okay, so the rest of the blue names, they've got to be hiding behind that curtain. So let's have a peek. Let's have a peek behind the curtain, shall we? Ah, there's two. We've got SLB Management. Oh, sorry, that's Izzy. Izzy with the stoned kitten. Let's have... That cat on Izzy's shoulder always makes me laugh. Look at the state of it. You cannot tell me that kitten is not stoned. Look at its eyes. Look at its eyes. Anyway, there's Izzy. And we do, of course, have Abner Any other blue names at the back here? No, that's it. There seems to be a lack of blue names, just like there was during Philip Linden's opening ceremony. There was only a handful of blue names hanging around. What the heck is that? It's a googly-eyed prim. Okay. Just going to park the camera just like that so we can see if any new blue names decide to pop in. Wish we was able to FSR on Second Life. Mrs. D.D. Northerton. I'm reading out chat, by the way, for all the people that are just listening to the stream. Hi, Vic. We're right beside it. Beside what? What are we right beside? I should watch chat more frequently. That way I'm not looking at things out of order. I think I spot a Bixel. Hold on a minute. I do spot a Bixel. The foxy reporter himself, Mr. Bixel Shufton. There he is. I've known Bixel for a very long time. Very long time. Runs the SL Newser. I think that's the name of his blog. It's more of a newspaper than a blog, but he runs the SL Newser. He's been running that for a very long time as well, coming to think of it. Oh, we've got a dragon. We've got a dragon. Baby one at that, but we've still got a dragon. Holding a fish. Oh, away from not. Oh, yeah, that massive abbey. Yeah, I seen it moving not that long ago. That must have left. Yeah, the big abbey must have left. What the heck is that? Hold on. It is a dolphin with cybernetic attachments and a pigeon standing on its head. You've got to love Second Life. You really do. Here's me with my boring avatar that never changes that much. So for anyone wondering, the plan is for every one of these Meet the Lindens, I am going to be live streaming every single one of them. Hopefully there's no internet problems, because I know that during SL23B I did have a couple of internet problems during the last two Meet the Linden meetings. But I've got a new internet provider now, and so far I've had no problems with them. So the plan is every single SL23B Meet the Lindens, I'm going to be live streaming it. Oh, by the way, quick reminder, if you're watching this on the playback as well, I will be at the larger of the Funky Monkey stages on Friday the 26th at 10 o'clock in the morning Second Life time, which is 6 o'clock in the evening UK time, DJing a 1960s themed set. And I'm going to be having the Charlie's Angels. You've probably seen them dancing around because they're usually at clubs and stuff, but they've been around a lot of the events here at SL23B. I've asked if the Charlie's Angels can pop up on stage and do a little 1960s themed fashion show, and they agreed. So they're going to be up on stage with me as well. So that's Friday the 26th. 10 o'clock in the morning, Second Life time, which is 6 o'clock in the evening, UK time. I'm going to be at the Funky Monkey stage. Don't know which one. It's the big one. That's the only thing I know, because I haven't actually figured out which one I'm going to be at, but I know it's the big stage for Funky Monkey. So hope to see you there, folks. Hope to see you there. And the big avatars just pop back. Look at the size of that avatar, though. Ooh, big avatar. Right. Anything happening yet on the stage? Let's peek round the back and see if any extra Lindens have popped in. Nope, it's still Izzy and Abner. Right, I am going to... Whoops. Oh, I don't need to because Sarah's done it for me. Thanks, Sarah. I was just about to spam that. And I just seen Sarah popped up. Thanks, Sarah. That saves me doing it. Let's have another sweep because we're less than 15 minutes. Any other blue names popped up? I don't think so, to be honest. Well, there is that crazy dolphin avatar now on the ground. Pigeon on its head, and it's a dolphin wearing a whole bunch of cybernetic attachments so it can walk on land. That is actually a rather cool avatar. Got to see it. That is a rather cool avatar, that one. Right, blue names. Let's have a look for any more blue names that have popped up. I don't think there is, though. There's Itza. Itza's already been here, though. Still scanning, still scanning. I think it's just Itza on the main floor. With a Lotta up in the corner. I'm not seeing any other moles up here. Which is kind of strange because, again, I missed SL23B, but I did watch some of the live recordings, and there was a whole bunch of moles all over the place. It seems to be very toned down this year. The blue name, which is the Linden and mole involvement, it seems to be very toned down this year compared to previous years for SL live birthday bashes, unless they're all going to magically appear 5 minutes before Philip Rosedale takes the stage. But seems to be a lot more toned down this year. It definitely does. Maybe they're looking for more cake so they can put cake on the actual stage. I got a lot of... What? Thanks for focusing on my... Somebody says up in the balcony. What's happening up in the balcony? There's Rachel. Errol and Whitney's still there. No, I don't think there's any blue names up in the balcony. Pull the cam up a bit more so we can take both tiers. There's one of the Republics. Second Republic will probably pop up later on. Oh, there's cake at the arrival sim. Oh, well, that's not so bad. And there's that giant avatar again. One thing I've got to say, I love the work that they've done on the stages this year. Especially that other one. What's the name of it? The Golden Palms. Because I've been at a few of the Golden Palm stage events. They've done a really good job. Really good job in the Golden Palm. So yeah, they pulled out the stops with this one. When it came to building work, I mean, just look at some of that detail work. That is gorgeous, though, and it's not as if it's a flat texture print. It's been meshed. Because if I just bump the camera in, you can see it. The detail that's going on there. So it's not just texture work either. It's actual full-out mesh work they've done. Really good job with the stages this year. Really good job. A lot of moles moved from one corner to the other. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, zoomed past them. Dun, dun, dun. That's it, folks. I'm not seeing... Oh, and it's still Itza. I'm not seeing any extra blue names kicking around. Yeah, Knight. I know they're behind the curtain. They're behind the curtain. Abner, and who was the other one? Let's have a look, actually. There might be extra ones there this time. Ding. Oh, it's Brett. So you've got Izzy with the stoned kitten. You've got Abner, and then you've got Brett. It's probably going to be Brett that's going to be opening up the chat by introducing Philip. In fact, hold on. I better get the stream up and running. Let's just minimize you, unmute the desktop audio. Oh, speaking about Philip, there he is there. So Philip's arrived. Oh, I think Brett might be walking up or getting ready to walk up. And you're too early, Brett. You don't start for another 9 minutes, dude. Chill, have a cup of tea. Let Philip res in first. There he is, the spiky haired dude. Well, I think... Oh no, there he is. That's Brett getting ready to walk up on stage. Still 9 minutes to go, Brett. Don't need to walk up on stage now. Move the mouse pointer out the way, Vic. There we go. Oh, wait a minute. We've got... it's one of the governance. One of the 30 billion governance avatars. So there's Governance Linden. There's a lot of those Governance Linden avatars. A lot of them. But there is definitely a lot less blue name involvement in the crowds than there has been in previous SLBs. A lot less involvement from the blue names. I mean, God, I remember what one was it? It was the Hello Vic, you give the best presentations of SL, thank you. Ah, thanks, Angel. What's a Governance Linden? Governance Linden, Knight Rider, if you go to any chunk of mainland that's either been abandoned or is put up for sale by Linden Lab, you'll notice Governance Linden or a Governor Linden name there. So Governance Linden takes care of two things: abuse reports and mainland parcels. That's why there's a lot of them. So you've got Governance Linden 18 or Governance Linden 19 or Governance Linden 20, that kind of thing. If you're wondering what that noise is, people, I vape. That's what that wind tunnel noise is, so I vape a lot. So that's what the noise is, folks, don't worry. I'm not in a wind tunnel testing out wind tunnels for somebody. Can you close up on us? We will wave. I don't know where you are, Morgan. Hold on, I'm going to risk a radar zoom in. Hopefully this doesn't crash the viewer though. Morgan, where are you? Morgan? There's a lot of people here. Morgan. Okay, what was that name again? I've forgotten already. Morgan Isla. There we go. Morgan Isla. And of course the camera's not moving because I've got the fly cam switched on. Nope. There we go. You've got your close-up, Morgan. That's Morgan, and that's it. That's Morgan, and that's Ernesto from USN 2nd Fleet, apparently. Yeah! You got your close-up, Morgan. There we go. Right, let's get rid of you. And what we're going to do, we are going to turn the camera around because we're now 5 minutes out, so I'm going to set the camera up. The good thing is there's only going to be 2 of them on stage, so this should be very, very easy to set up. How are we going to do this? Let's get a good camera position here. Something like that. Is the champagne... Oh! I probably shouldn't have done that. Now everybody knows that if you click on the champagne bottle, it makes a popping noise. Now everyone's going to be hitting the champagne bottle. Sorry. Pop, 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 pop. I'm just teleported onto the stage like an idiot. Hold on. Probably shouldn't have clicked that fast. Actually, I'm not on the stage. Where did I end up? I ended up in the middle of nowhere. Hold on. That was odd. I've got the double click teleport thing switched on, and obviously I double click teleported, but I didn't double click teleport onto the stage. I double click teleported it in the middle of nowhere, and I think I'm going to crash now because I am now just lag walking. I'm not crossing the sim boundary at all, I'm just lag walking. Oh, hold on, there I am. Right, I'm going to have to find myself a seat very quick because I think we're about to start. That's not me hitting that bottle, by the way. That's somebody else. Right, let's refresh the stream. They're obviously going to be doing this over the stream. It's not going to be over voice. Right there, should do it. There we go. People are hitting that bottle now. You can hear it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to
that's loud.
SL23B. This is the first of 5 Meet the Linden sessions held every day at 1 o'clock SLT time throughout the week. We want to make sure that you're aware that later this week you'll have opportunities to ask questions and meet the leads of our product team on Tuesday, on engineering for Wednesday, marketing and growth on Thursday, and then our Second Life Studios and Molds will be here on Friday to answer your questions. But we're going to kick it off today with the founder of Second Life, Philip Rosedale. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you, Brett.
So, Philip, we've got a lot of questions that have been pre-submitted from our community, and so I know you've had a chance to take a look through them.
Thanks,
so I'm
Brett.
Yeah.
I am struggling because I'm hearing the audio feedback from our group here. Hold on a second.
Or you're watching my stream, Philip,
right,
and you
we'll
forgot to mute.
Just
saying.
Probably if you mute the in world, that might help with your echo.
Yeah, I think that's...
Is that better?
What we've got. Yeah. Super.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Great. Sorry about that. I was I was also listening to the output track there. Thank you, Brett. Hi, everyone. Wonderful to see you.
So,
Lots
Philip,
of people here.
There's so many people here to see you,
Yeah,
and
no,
they've asked so
everyone's
many
hit the
questions ahead of
champagne
time.
bottle.
I know you've had a chance to peek at some of the pre-submitted questions, so I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of go through some of those, and then I'm going to look at, I guess with you, we'll look at the chat as well, and maybe take a few real-time questions as well during this hour. But why don't you take it away with some of the pre-submitted questions, and welcome, and glad you're here.
Hopefully
Thanks, Brett.
Hopefully
Is everybody hearing me okay now? You're hearing me, right, Brett?
Yes.
Super. Sorry for the clumsy start here. Great. Yes, like as Brett said, hi everyone. I've got a bunch of many questions that came in, and I'm going to start by answering a number of those questions, and then Brett and I will take some of the real-time and other in-world questions here. But thanks everybody for all the good questions, by the way. It was a lot of fun to just read through them and pick some ones that I thought would perhaps be the most interesting to answer. I think you'll also notice I'm not taking on a lot of the more engineering and product related questions because we've got a few other team members that will be better able to answer those than I this week. But let me start with this first question. When you first imagined Second Life, what was the most important thing you hoped people would do there? And what have residents done that surprised you the most? And I'm apologizing in advance. I don't have the names of the questioners here
Sarah,
on my document, but that's the question. So that's a great one. When I first imagined Second Life, it was a pretty different thing than what we're sitting in today. It was kind of the original dream of Second Life was a bit more like an A-Life, artificial life simulator. I was imagining that we would build something that had a much more complicated and strict sort of laws of physics.
Basically, he wanted to build Skynet.
There would be a lot of emergent behavior in that, and potentially even artificial life forms that might evolve within the world, in addition to having all the people here. And so it was originally going to be something that I guess in some ways you might think of as being a bit closer to maybe something like Minecraft, where there are sort of all these rules that you're negotiating in the world, and then the magic of the world is kind of coming out of the interaction of all of us with all of those rules. And in the end, it became, or very quickly, I should say, Second Life became much more about individual creativity and the ability of the individual to be, for example, artistically expressive. And then, of course, also about avatars. The whole idea of what our avatars would be was undetermined at the beginning. I mentioned this the other day at the welcoming ceremony. We had avatars in the beginning that did not have bodies. We had an avatar that was like a little, Close Encounters kind of alien spaceship with a sort of a Cylon eye that showed you which way somebody was looking. And then we had another kind of avatar that was a giant eyeball so that you could just as expressively as possible see exactly where each individual was looking while they were editing things. And so pretty different than what Second Life became today. Next question is, looking back after more than 20 years now, which of your original beliefs about virtual worlds turned out to be right and which turned out to be completely wrong? Well, there's so many different answers to that I'm just going to pick one to answer here. And that was, in the beginning, and especially actually when we started to take off and Second Life, suddenly was on the front page news of, pretty much everywhere in the world, in the sort of 2006 timeframe. I thought at that time that everyone in the world would use an avatar at least a little. So for example, I was imagining that people would, not fly to business meetings in New York, and they would instead go to those meetings as an avatar. But I didn't know how much they would be an avatar. So I figured that everybody in the world would be an avatar at least a little bit of the time. I guess in a way I felt that Second Life would be more like the internet generally, in that sense that, everybody would have something that they needed out of it. And, some people would use it more than others. But it turned out that most people were not willing to sort of become avatars, not even for work, but that a smaller number of people would use avatars as a more primary form of their representation. That a smaller number of people would become avatars and use them almost all of the time. So I just wanted to pick that as one example of something I was totally wrong about, and that remains, I think, one of the mysteries and challenges about Second Life and about virtual worlds more generally. And I'll come back to that and talk to that because there's another question that speaks to that. A third question is, you've often described Second Life as a place that gives people freedom. Why do you think freedom remains such a powerful ingredient in virtual worlds when many modern platforms are moving toward more controlled experiences? Well, first off, it's a lovely question, but I must say you were kind of serving me a softball here, leading the witness, knowing what I'm going to say, being a big fan of creativity. What I would say, though, about freedom and about creative freedom and about how it applies to virtual worlds is that it's interesting to look back now and note that too much freedom can be overwhelming. Like, imagine being an artist the first time painting and you're holding a big palette.
Yeah, too much freedom can be overwhelming. Just look at mainland.
I think of that, by the way, as a little bit like the sandbox experience at the very earliest moments of Second Life, where people would just, find themselves literally standing in a field in the case of Second Life, and there's pretty much nothing there, and you've got to start from scratch. Or like I just saw someone say there in the audience, like Blender, Roy, yeah, like Blender. You open up Blender or Unity and you're just looking at a grid, and there's nothing else. I think that level of freedom can often be, it's empowering, but it can often also be overwhelming. And so, and then on the other hand, too little freedom, I think what happens when you have too little freedom, and I guess that would be something like, a video game where people have just found out clever ways to kind of express themselves by screwing around with what's going on in the video game. I think in that case, too little freedom reduces your opportunity to be personally expressive.
Yes.
And so that also is a kind of a lose. So I think at one limit with too much freedom, it becomes overwhelming and people are just like, I choose nothing. And then at the point of too little freedom, it's not as much of a personal way to express yourself, and so people also opt out of it. So I think we have to be in the middle somewhere, and I think Second Life obviously is biased toward too much freedom. And be that as it may, that's I think where we have landed. Another question: if you were inventing Second Life for the first time in 2026, what would you build differently, and what would you absolutely keep the same? There again, I could talk on that, as a lecture series for hours, but I'll just pick one thing. I would even in fact go back a little bit to 100% live building. You know, we all know how electrifying it is to build things in front of somebody else or to work together on something at the same time. And I think that focus on the world always being edited at the same time that it's being used is critical, and I would actually have doubled down on that. We switched over to allow things like mesh because, as a practical matter, we needed to. You all wanted
thank God for mesh.
that you got out of mesh.
Because I remember sculpties, they were an utter disaster.
To, you know, allow offline edits to be imported was something that was a trade-off, and it definitely, I think, was the right decision. But if I had it to do over again, and if I was starting from today, 100% live editing, no offline editing, you know, no offline tool sets. So I think that's the way I would do it, and I think that would be crazy cool. A second thing is that the avatars would be made of the same stuff as the prims. So I think that there's something that we missed by having the avatars be so separate from the building model itself. And I would re-examine that. And I think in 2026, we could build avatars and the world out of the same materials. Like we could use these new things that some of you probably know called splats, you know, that are like little cotton balls, if you will, that, you know, you use millions of them rather than...
So it's like an insect on a windscreen, splat.
You know, we might find that we could use them for both the world and the avatars. But the fact that the world and the avatars are different always struck me as a little bit of a missed opportunity. It wasn't my intention in the beginning. I wanted everything to be, as you probably, some of you remember, Primitar. You know, that was an avatar, albeit an unattractive one, but it was an avatar that was built entirely out of prims. All right, next question. So what do you think makes a virtual world feel truly alive? Is it the technology, the economy, the creators, the social connections, or is it something else entirely? So there again, there's a lot to say, but the two things that I always remember as best I can as being the two things that made Second Life real in a way that nothing else was. Thank you there. I see Primitar in the front row. Fantastic. Here is Primitar for you all to examine. So the two things that really made Second Life magical to me were that it had a sufficient set of live building tools to allow us to be genuinely expressive. As I touched on earlier, it was that thing. The building tools were just good enough to criticize in that Steve Jobs way. They were good enough for us to be personally expressive with them. You know, the very earliest beta of Second Life, you know, Linden World, was good enough for you to build a house that looked like the house you wanted to live in, for example. So I think that it was that the building tools were sufficiently powerful, and then also that there was an economy so that if you wanted to share, trade, help each other, you could do that easily. And then, of course, the last thing, you know, which goes without saying at a moment like this with all of us here, is a certain density of other real people, and in fact, a very diverse set of other real people was also critical, and, you know, strikes me as the one thing that a lot of experimental virtual worlds miss. You know, they can do everything right, but if they don't attract and retain a diverse group of people, you know, there's nothing. You know, virtual worlds with no people in them are not even really virtual worlds. It's all about the world being a space between us. All right, let me move on to another one here. So here's a good question. What has Second Life taught you about human nature that you don't think you could have learned in any other way? I think that's a great question. Because I must say, from my own personal experience, one of the many things that I value about having, you know, had the pleasure and the honor of working on Second Life for a long time now, and you know, for the majority of my career, has been the things that I do learn, and many of them about human nature that, you know, I learned through Second Life. I think one of them that I'd highlight as my answer is just that people want to help each other out more than they want to fight or compete with each other. And I think that's something that it's easy to forget in the world sometimes. We so many reasons for it, but we have such a desire to believe that we are these lone wolf tigers moving through the world, you know, interacting with others more at a level of competition than cooperation. And Second Life really showed me that that's just not the case. You know, for the most part, people want to help each other out more than they want to compete or fight with them. I remember a story from that. There was a guy, I remember us having a board meeting where we were worried that there was some kind of financial scam going on because we heard that there was someone giving out land at the welcome area, and we could see like I think we could see like a lot of transactions in that area. And so we became concerned, you know, as stewards of the world, that this was, you know, yet another Ponzi scheme or something that people were being subjected to. And what we discovered, well, what I discovered when I went in world, because I think I was the one who did, I went in world and I found this resident, and wouldn't it be amazing if they were here today or something? And I said, why, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you giving out land? And the guy told me, it's just so much fun. He said, I buy interesting pieces of land that I bought, you know, for real money. You know, I think, you know, for on average.
Somebody want to buy me land? Just asking.
You know, I bought land somewhere in the world, and then I would just stand at the welcome area and just give it to people, asking nothing in return, just giving them a piece of land for free that they could take over and, you know, go and start developing on. And I mean, how moving is that? I mean, I couldn't believe it. You know, we thought that it was somebody trying to scam people, and it was, in fact, somebody that just took such pleasure in helping newbies out that that's what he did. And that was basically his experience in Second Life. And I just was like, that's absolutely fantastic. So I think that's a good example of that, you know, what Second Life teaches us about human nature. And of course, Second Life has been wonderful as well, because it does take away some of the ways that people have to hurt each other in the real world, certainly not all of them. But, you know, when you're in Second Life, you're obviously not at you're not at risk of physical harm in the way that you are sometimes or potentially in the real world.
Very true.
And so I think that is really moving. And again, I could go on for hours about that, and maybe we'll come back to it. Another great question kind of in the same area is, what lessons from Second Life do you wish today's social media platforms had learned? Boy, do I think that's a great question at this moment in time, 2026. My simple answer is this: ads are evil. Microtransactions are a lot better. You know, there was a moment in the late 90s, or I guess maybe maybe it's more appropriately in the mid 90s, where we all started talking about microtransactions. The idea of the early internet, or one of the questions of the early internet, was, how are we going to pay for all of this? And there was really just two schools of thought about that. One was, we'll just put ads on everything. And of course, that was the one that won. And then the other school of thought was to say, we'll figure out how to charge very small amounts of money for things. And of course, you know, friends, Second Life was, I think, the richest exploration ever, and still, into what would that be like, you know, that you could very, very, very easily charge each other very small amounts of money for things. And I think that what we learned is, in my opinion, I think what Second Life really shows is that was a better and more honest direction. Just enabling the infrastructure to be built around allowing people to quickly and easily charge very small amounts of money for things.
There's an argument to be made that microtransactions are actually worse because they're in the process of being banned in some European countries.
We could debate that in the Q&A, but I do think that there is something much healthier about having a direct economy. And of course, Second Life, by the way, included microtransactions and a basic income. So everybody had, and then they could kind of move that money around as their vote, so to speak. And in doing so, kind of preference different types of content. And I think that the world and the social behavior, of course, was way, way, way better doing it that way. And I mean, don't even get me started on, surveillance, the surveillance economy and, how horrific that's become. But clearly we just didn't do any of that from the get-go. Some of it was just accidental, some of it was intentional. But I think that, the fact that we didn't want to know anything about you as a physical person, and tried to keep as little information as we possibly could, in fact, was, again, very powerful and very, very much the opposite of social media as it's been. So thanks for that question. Okay, so a lot of questions about the creativity and the creator economy. So one question here is, Second Life pioneered the creator economy long before the term existed. What do you think modern creator platforms still get wrong?
Everything.
Well, I think they probably still get quite a bit wrong, but and so do we. But I do think it's a fair statement that we got into the middle of enabling creativity a lot earlier than a lot of other internet companies did. I think the one thing that modern platforms still get wrong is that their fees aren't low enough, particularly on transactions. So obviously Second Life has a variety of different fees for a variety of different things, but one of the things that's remained true is that an in-world transfer of Linden dollars some in-world, many in-world purchases of goods and services have no fees associated with them. And there are, fees on, for example, marketplace listings, but those fees are still more like eBay level of fees, single digit
the marketplace fees are tiny.
Whereas many of the other things that I hear being called, creator economies or whatever, have revenue splits with the creators that are like horrifically bad, that are like...
IMVU is a perfect example. You try and create something in IMVU, they skin you dry over there.
This instinct that no creator economy of any real interest will ever get started around a revenue share where the platform makes a big chunk or, God forbid, even the majority of the money in the transactions. So I think that there's something very generally true about creator platforms needing to be pretty low fee for them to be useful. I mean, credit cards are like that, right? Credit cards are credit cards are a platform, and fees are very low on them. So I think we did that right, and it's a good thing to kind of keep an eye on for other platforms. So I see somebody. I'm going to jump in. I see somebody asking, you're teasing me with the boomer statement. Has Philip tested Resonate, or is he a bit too boomer to try VR? Are you kidding me? I had a company for 7 years doing VR, and I'm very well aware of Resonate, and I give it huge kudos. I think Resonate's just a beautiful, very similar to Second Life and very powerful platform. Okay, next question. What creator-made experience in Second Life left the strongest impression on you personally? Well, too many to remember, but I just picked a couple here. Cubiterra made the amazing Abbott's Aerodrome and then had a skydiving experience there where you'd get hoisted up into the air and you'd go skydiving way, way, way high in the sky over that airport and then land on it, and it had real working parachutes and everything. I remember that just being super, super, super cool.
Seriously old school, that aerodrome.
Another one was the classic AM radio. I think wasn't his space called Far Away? Somebody can give me the name, but he had that amazing region when, of course, that classic first one with the train parked amidst the wheat, where I think he had to custom design those wheat fields to even work in those earlier days of Second Life.
From
so
AM radio.
I remember the kind of haunting feeling of that was just is just unbelievable. And then another one that I think of that left a strong impression on me personally was Robbie Dingo's Watch the World video. That, for those who remember it, and I know a bunch of people here do, it was a video of him rebuilding Van Gogh's Starry Night as a 3D scene. So he built everything that painting painted, and then he kind of pulled the camera back at the end to show you the painting, you know, as if you didn't, you know, get it already. I think that one just was really amazing. It was one of the first ones that I thought read well outside of Second Life, you know, as a video rather than as an in-world experience. A bunch of questions about technology and the future and AI and some of that stuff. Let's see, a first one here, you know, take this one head on since we all talk about AI so much. Question is, do you think AI-generated characters will eventually become meaningful members of online communities?
No.
Will human-created communities always remain fundamentally different?
That'll be fundamentally different.
Well, as some of you may know, I am on the board and working some of my time at an institute called the California Institute for Machine Consciousness, which is called CIMC.AI, and you can look up the work that's being done there. I say that because it's part of the answer. The answer is eventually, but not the AIs we have today. The AIs that are in the world today are not yet alive and compelling as prospective, you know, friends and neighbors in a virtual world, as are we. And I think they are remarkably far from that. And that is actually the work that we're doing at CIMC. We're working on what it will really take for neural networks and, you know, more generally, so I say that to say not LLMs, but more broadly, artificial neural networks.
He wants to start Skynet,
to
people.
sort of grow up among us and be able to think for themselves and act in a way that makes a real difference in terms of being something we'd be interested in. I'm getting a lot of sound there that's distracting me. So I think that eventually, but AI today is not ready yet to live among us in virtual worlds. Some of you might look up a Substack I wrote called Awakening the Angels, where I meditated a bit more on this topic and proposed a way that the AIs that we are imagining building in the near future, you know, might become compatible with our own experience, but not yet today. And I think we've done a lot of good, we and others in Second Life have done a lot of good experimenting with AI, and I think it underscores what I just said. Thank you, Ravelli, for putting that link in there. That's it. Another question is, what technological breakthrough do you think would most dramatically improve virtual worlds
Vulkan.
Today?
Get rid of OpenGL and switch to Vulkan.
For that one,
that's the answer.
I think
Vulkan.
And I've said this a number of times before, I continue to believe that the ability to convey nonverbal emotion and nonverbal signals is a vital component of making virtual worlds broadly compelling. That is, going back to what I said at the beginning, getting everybody to use them, at least some. I think the biggest thing that we're missing is emotional nonverbal communication, particularly when you meet somebody for the first time, and we've all had this experience. There's a lot of body language and facial expressions and eye movements that tell us about that person, and even more importantly, enable us to trust that person. Of course, as we all know here, you can do that without nonverbal information. Pretty much everybody here has learned to do it without nonverbal information, but it's still a tremendous impediment to not have it. And I mentioned this technology change because it's coming. It hasn't worked yet, but body and face and emotion tracking, particularly if we use AI to help with the detection of it, is something that is going to allow us to make our avatars here good enough to start getting everybody in world. Obviously, look at these avatars in the room today. Don't look at mine, of course, haha, look at all yours. The avatars you're all wearing out there are, in a static sense, of course, they're incredibly expressive. They're beautiful, they're capable of great emotional expression. We just need the software that conveys your intention into the avatar. By the way, I call the, people say, oh, this or that, technology I've seen or VR chat or something does that well enough. Unfortunately, not yet. We've done pretty careful studies on whether nonverbal communication is really coming across. And the great example that I often give is what I call like the spouse test, which is if nonverbal communication was working on avatars, what it would mean is that if somebody's spouse saw this image right now, they saw the avatars in the room with the audio turned off, and the avatars were just kind of moving with the nonverbal expressivity that the real person behind it was moving with, that person's spouse would immediately recognize them by their motion. You can look up some of the academic papers on this, but it's kind of it's the gold standard. When you see somebody moving without any sound on, you instantly know if it's your spouse, even if they're wearing another outfit or something. You know it from their body language. And we're not there yet for that. As a funny side note, Midjourney, a company that obviously is very famous in AI, and by the way, recently just released a crazy ultrasonic body scanning device, which is just absolute science fiction. Midjourney was actually David, who started Midjourney. David and I worked on starting a project to use AI to better convey nonverbal communication to your avatar. And we almost got started on it, and then David decided that he just had to do Midjourney and the image generation work that got Midjourney started. So that's kind of a fun Silicon Valley story. But we're close to getting that working. I think the Lex Fridman, Mark Zuckerberg interview, which is on Lex Fridman's YouTube channel, that was done with some pretty sophisticated offline AI tools, is actually at least a good example of how close we are. It's not quite real time, but it's close. I see somebody said, make sure you limp a little to not get detected. Yes, that's somebody who knows some of the background material here. That's right. You can fool motion detectors by faking a kind of a broken leg or something as a way of fooling them. All right, next question. What aspect of Second Life are you most proud of, regardless of business success or technology? That's a great question. It's an easy answer. The positive impact on people. Second Life has, without question, had an overall positive impact on people. I know everybody here would agree with that. And particularly in these days where tech has done so much harm to human relationships, I just couldn't feel more proud than that. There's just nothing even close to it. The fact that I was able to build something that was modestly positive for human social interaction with each other is just like, come on, right? I mean, I couldn't feel better about anything about my career than that, for sure. I think I'll take one more of the pre-questions, and then we can shift over to Brett and I can chat, and we can pick out some ones here with the extra time we have. So my last pre-question is this: what problem are you most interested in solving today that you weren't thinking about 20 years ago?
Oh.
And I am working on a project that's not released yet, but that there has been some earlier versions of it online, and thank you, those of you in the room that have helped me with it. We've got a community of people that have been working on it. I'm very interested in how the specific design of Second Life's currency systems might be used to create better forms of local community currencies for the real world. So what I mean by that is, imagine if you could buy groceries in your local community using something like Linden dollars, using a currency that is perhaps a local community currency that has some rules around it that are derived from some of the things that really worked in Second Life. And yeah, as Sarah just said, the design, part of the design of what I'm working on is the thing that's called Fair Share. And you can read about that by going to fairshare.social. But the basic idea is, I am pretty certain that we will soon here, in the same way that I was certain about Second Life being possible, and that it would certainly exist in the future, you know, when I was dreaming about it. I have a similar conviction right now that we're going to stop using dollars. We're going to start using, or at least we're going to put some of our time, we're going to start using local currencies. There's a great defense and history for this, and it's one of the things that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about right now. And it couldn't have happened till now because we didn't have smartphones, you know, until a few years ago. You know, we didn't all have smartphones, and it's smartphones that, you know, obviously give us the ability to do that. And no, it's not Bitcoin. We could take that more in the Q&A, but Bitcoin and Ethereum do not possess the qualities that the Linden dollar has, and the qualities that you need as an actual currency. So let's see, anything else here? I'm looking at the questions, and then Brett and I can shift over to some ideas. I love one of the questions. Without knowing a good answer, I'll give a funny answer, but I really like this. If you could instantly grant every resident one new ability tomorrow, what would it be? And of course, I immediately thought of flying, because, you know, flying is Second Life, and Second Life is flying. And I guess maybe that's more, I wish I could give me and everybody else in the audience the ability to physically fly the way we can fly in Second Life. So let me stop now and reinvite the voice of Brett here to chat and pick out some other questions to answer. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Philip. And a reminder to everybody, if you do have questions, you can just type them in chat. We'll be monitoring that and pulling out as much as we can as time allows.
Did the stream get really
I'm looking
quiet?
through the backlog of questions here. There's about 2 or 3 that I'll toss at you that I see already. One of them comes from Nicholas Kingsley, who works with Gray School of Wizardry. One of the things we found at the Gray School is that Second Life gives online education a sense of place, presence, and shared experience that ordinary course platforms often lack. So the question is, do you think that virtual worlds still have an underdeveloped role to play in serious adult learning?
Yes.
That's
basically.
Such a great question. Thanks for bringing that one up, and thank you, Nicholas, for working on the Gray School of Wizardry. First a positive and then a negative, or a challenge. Absolutely, virtual worlds have an underdeveloped role to play in adult learning. And one of the things about Second Life specifically that facilitates learning in virtual environments is the fact that it is a place with a spatial layout, meaning that when you go to the meeting, you teleport outside and then you walk into the meeting room. And while you're getting into the meeting room, you run into some friends, and then you sit there and you chit chat with your friends, and then you all decide to sit together, et cetera, et cetera. That experience is critical to learning in ways that we as academics still don't understand. So I've heard this wonderful expression that says, like, learning is messy. We don't understand why and how we learn, but we do know some things about it that are generally true. One is that these social experiences and these interstitial experiences, when you're coming into the classroom and leaving the classroom, are way more important than we thought. And so I think virtual worlds, when they're done right, like Second Life is, can give you like a whole campus that you spend your time on, and it gives you that magical access to other people in the way that facilitates learning. Of course, the challenge side, the reason why virtual worlds are not 100% what we use for learning today is what I said before, unfortunately, which is that the nonverbal communication and the lack of body language and knowing who's looking at who, for example, is just too big a blocker for many, not all, but many learning experiences still do require this same nonverbal cues that we're missing here. And so I think once we get that technology that lets our avatars move right, then it'll instantly, get a lot more learning experiences happening here. Thanks for that question. That's great.
I don't know if you saw, there was a quick follow-up to that question from Nicholas.
Yeah.
If you want to address that as well. Do you think the main challenge is technological, cultural, or institutional?
I think it's technological. You've all done so much good work here over the years.
I'm going to risk it and type a question into chat, see if they pick it up.
It's not for lack of trying. I think the blocker is still, as I said, the technological problem of nonverbal communication. I think another one I've heard mentioned is voice, video, screen sharing. All of that stuff has to work perfectly. And in many cases, it has to work for the audience size you want to target, for your classroom. And I think we're getting better at that, Second Life is. But, if you wanted to do a freshman chemistry class or something in here, you'd still have to use a four corners grid, right? I mean, your typical freshman chemistry class has got 300 or 400 kids in it at most universities. So, we can't do that yet.
So
I think anyway. But we can get there. But I do think most of the problems are technical.
So Philip, there's a question that throws back to a previous Q&A session, so I may need to jog your memory here, but Sarah Kay has asked in reference to a Linden World replica, back in the day, Linden World. So whatever happened to the idea of making a Linden World replica? I think Sarah had proposed that. And then she asked rather cheekily, where are your infamous sparkly shorts?
The sparkly shorts.
Yeah. Well, I changed my sparkly shorts because I wanted to be respectful of the fact that if Second Life is to grow, we've got to make people more comfortable being here. And I think sometimes the as I've talked about before, the unwanted sensuality of Second Life can be a little overwhelming for new people, which does not mean that we don't want lots of sensuality in Second Life, but that we probably want to find ways to better signal when it's appropriate and when it's not. And so I think I took my sparkly shorts off for that reason. Although I must say I still love the general look of my avatar. I find myself inspecting myself right now. That's right. I switched to a more subdued, pair of biker pants, but not the crotchless ones with codpiece. So yeah, that's funny. Thank you. And Sarah is, of course, a source of so many great ideas, and thank you for all of them, Sarah. I don't know, Linden World. I don't think there was. I think it's a great idea, but to do it is so much work because we'd have to go. One of the things you may not know about Linden World, although I'm sure Sarah does, is that the primitives weren't exactly compatible with Second Life, so we can't just load Linden World into Second Life today because it would break. The scripting format and some of the object formats are different. I used to delight people in the earliest days of Second Life by busting things out of my Philip Linden inventory that would just crash the server, but obviously it creates the same problem with standing that up. So Sarah, I still do think it's a good idea. I just think that one's so much work that I don't think if we put it to a vote, we'd get everybody wanting to do that. But thanks, that's a good question.
All right, a quick reminder to everybody, there are some questions that I think are probably best directed to engineering or product or marketing or studios Mole's team. So we'll do our best to address those as the week comes forward. Here's another question from the audience. This comes from Tay Icon. Can you address the future of Second Life, where you believe it's headed, for example, user growth and retention? And I will just mention there's a follow-up related from Lydia that just says, hey, I second that question. How much future proofing is really possible?
There is no future proofing because they're still using OpenGL.
Future proofing is really
That's
possible.
The problem.
That's a funny way to put it. As I said before, I think the biggest thing for the future of Second Life, if a lot of times when people say future, they say, are we going to grow more? As I said, my take remains that we need to convey emotional communication better. And as we're able to do that, nonverbal communication will start to get a lot more people feeling comfortable spending time in here. And I think that's the big picture, longer time frame gain that will start to bring people into virtual worlds in the kind of way that I imagined back in 2006, and that hasn't yet happened. So there's tons and tons of little things we can do. Lately, over the past year or so, we've gotten much, much better at marketing materials and attracting people to try Second Life out for the first time. And so I think we will see those efforts start to bear fruit. But I think that, I guess the flip side of that is, honestly, it's challenging to both meet the desires and requirements of an incredibly creative group of people that have used this thing for more than 20 years and just be completely flip about what one could try or do to make things grow, if you follow what I mean there. It's a trade-off between those things. And I think the fact that we have been a happy, positive home for hundreds of thousands of people for more than 20 years is just really cool. And I'm personally okay with not necessarily growing as fast as we possibly could for the fact that we've been able to do that. So I know that's not an easy, hey, this is the thing we'll do that'll, suddenly make Second Life take off explosively. I don't have those answers, but I feel okay with where we are and the trade-offs we've made.
All right. Dr. Fran Babcock asks, I love the idea of the preserved history being made available. Are these builds still around somewhere? I think in reference to some of the classic builds you spoke about earlier, and in general, some of the classic builds.
Hi, Dr. Fran. It's great to see you wherever you are out there.
That's not me doing the clicking, by the way. It's somebody else.
Yeah, I think the problem is just that, well, one of the problems is that the design of Second Life still means that we, Linden Lab, have to pay a considerable amount of money for every region that's up. So, like, if copyright notwithstanding, if we could put wouldn't it be amazing if you just had a time handle on Second Life and you could just turn time back to 2009 and look at it? That would just be so cool. But obviously the amount of data that would represent is just, not possible. I think we're something like 2.8 petabytes of data is just the world as it is right now, right? So, if you had, 10 snapshots of that back in time, I leave you to do the math, but it would be impossibly expensive. And then the other problem is, as I touched on earlier, that things like Linden World, you can't res them because the system actually changed formats, and the world doesn't look exactly the same way or can't support the same appearances as back then. Yeah, Dr. Fran, you just said, what about a res, or you could choose different builds? Yeah, yes, we could set up the Linden World build or something for everybody, but again, that would be quite a bit of engineering work to do that, and it would fragment because you'd have to log out of Second Life and then log into Linden World, if you will, and try it out. What's next, Brett?
All right, so Martin asks, I joined Second Life in 2005. Oh my gosh, a long time ago.
Wow, that's a while ago.
And experienced the boom times, and I do remember that dozens of companies joined Second Life. People have said that, quote unquote, most companies would have their meetings and workshops in Second Life. It turns out that this didn't materialize. Do you, Philip, regret that, or are you happy with how things have actually turned out?
I'm happy with how things turned out, honestly. I'm less of a big company person and more of a community content and community person, as I think many people here are aware. So I think I'm happy with how it turned out. I also think, as I said before, because of the nonverbal communication thing, getting a large enough number of people from any one, say, geography to use Second Life so that it would be a viable, say, marketing tool for companies in the real world that are trying to sell, clothing and shoes or something. We're just not there yet. And again, I think that the getting to where everybody is comfortable using it a little would be the breakaway there that would make that even become a conversation. Like right now, I just don't think that, really big consumer brands, for example, it just wouldn't make any sense for them to come here. And so
True.
I'm happy. And then as I said, personally, I'll just be honest, I'm not a big brand person. So I just would prefer to be in a world without big brands in it. Maybe it's a little bit of my Burning Man background, but it just, this suits me better. So I'm happy with it.
Okay, Morgan asks, it would be wonderful if Second Life developed programs in theater, art, sports, leadership, and other areas that allow the moles, creators, and the community to participate in. Their support has a meaningful impact on the creators who bring these events to life. What can something like that be considered? And it looks like somebody also commented, Journey, as a follow-up, would love to see scholarships for the arts, theater grants, etc., to help defray the cost of things that take a large amount of time and need a venue to present. I will mention that we do have the Linden Endowment for the Arts that continues, amongst other things. But Philip, do you have any comments on that as well?
Yeah, well, the positive side of supporting the arts, say, separate from supporting, like, I guess, commerce or something like that here,
try and turn the camera
is that it certainly does provide the opportunity to
crash, you know why.
Grow art forms, in the world. And I know all of us here pretty much all of us love art and love seeing the amazing art that shows up in here. So at a high level, funding for the arts makes a ton of sense. But flip it around and think about the other side of it. And I know there's as many people in the room that would chat, throw some chat in the logs here, which is if we do too much curated top-down support for anything in Second Life, it becomes very difficult for us to do that fairly. And if you get to a situation where it seems like you've got to beg the powers that be to get you to do what you want to do, everyone loses in that situation because your ability to predict what the powers that be wants.
Okay, that's
and,
a lot of people.
It's just not fair on so many different levels. So I'm okay with the world not having a lot of, say, or some kinds of support for the arts if it creates a more level and fair playing field for everybody to do art. So, I know that's a complex topic, but I just wanted to face it and not just say, well, I wish we could support all the arts. No, I don't. I want the baseline experience to be an open, free, you do what you want experience, and we'll see how that goes, rather than try to do the art that you think the Lindens like best.
I'm surprised my viewer has not crashed. Look at that. That's a lot of people out there.
Okay, just a quick time check for everybody. We've got just a few minutes remaining and a few questions already in the queue. But let's get to these as fast as we can. Herp Derp says, what are some things we can do to help keep this place around, even if we don't have money?
Perp Derp.
Oh, well, that's a good question, I guess. Personally onboarding people into Second Life, and people do this all the time, but I'll just, you could do it more like I think like telling people that are in communities that might like Second Life and then helping them try it, and then giving us like really specific actionable feedback on what exactly happened. What I mean by this is everybody in Second Life has an opinion about, how to make the welcome areas better. I know that. You all can imagine. I'm painfully aware of that fact, right? All of those opinions are different. I've seen almost all of them tried and none of them have worked. That is to say, people's very generic opinions about what they think should happen is not nearly as valuable as actually, I just saw Melissa say this, adopt a noob day. Like, if you actually pick one new person and then help them get into Second Life or not, and then, write up exactly what happened and send it to us, that kind of design information goes a long way. And that is something that I would say, perp derp, you could do, which is go help a brand new person get into Second Life, a specific brand new person, write down what happened, and let us know, what things we could change, because we're still at a situation where we don't know.
Charlemagne, I give noobs guns.
We don't know. We aren't good enough at picking out actionable things that the team we have can do to help move things forward. Okay, I'll stop there.
All right, here's an interesting question. What fiction are you reading, Philip? It's always appreciated
I'm
when you
all
have
the
recommendations.
That's a great question. Gosh, so much. What have I read recently? I was reading The Philosophy of Ted Chiang. That's a book. That's pretty cool. I'm just reading, Project Hail Mary. I did read Project Hail Mary. I thought it was lovely. I did read the book before the film and then later saw the film. God, I'm having one of those moments where when you ask me that on the spot, I can't remember all the books I'm reading, but I have so many books in my house. You can't imagine. I try to read just about everything. I don't read audiobooks. One suggestion that I have is, if you're able to read physical books and turn the pages, there's a lot of research about how much more memorable and comprehensible that material is. So that's kind of a funny one. But what other fiction am I reading? Oh, shoot. I'll think of it while we're talking here, and maybe I'll put some in chat. Bring up my Amazon buy list or something.
All right, another.
Shoot. I'll think of it while we're talking here, and maybe I'll put some in chat. Bring up my Amazon buy list or something.
All right, another.
Shoot. I'll think of it while we're talking here.
I think the stream has crashed. We're getting a repeat loop here, folks.
Bring up my Amazon buy list or something.
The stream's
All right,
crashed.
Another question. This is a fun one.
Not the back.
Of the cornfield, and the cornfield was this bizarre cornfield with television sets strewn around in it that were playing like how to be a better person, public service messages and stuff. But the basic idea was that we would stick you in a location that you couldn't leave for a certain amount of time. So that's the funny real story of the cornfield. The meta story is one of the reasons
I was actually cornfielded by Torley Linden about a decade ago.
Than most online places is that there are real consequences to your actions here. Maybe not so many as we'd like. Maybe we need to add more consequences. But the fact that there are some consequences to bad behavior is undoubtedly one of the reasons that Second Life is such a wonderful place.
Yeah, the bottle's too tempting. You've got to click on it.
You would argue immediately that there's not enough consequences. That may be true, but I do think that bringing back the cornfield at the broader level of making sure that people understand that their membership in their community, their ability to be here, their the norms that they should follow when they're here are very much a product of everyone's actions here. I think that is something that is very magical and unique to Second Life. And the management regime of everyone's anonymous and you can do whatever you want unless Mark Zuckerberg finds out, and then he's going to bust you, to give the example played out on, say, Instagram or something. That is just so stupid. That's such a frustrating and ineffective way of people managing each other. What we do in Second Life, right, where you're a part of a lot of different overlapping local communities, and if you screw around with those communities, you're going to pay the price for that. That is such a better model. So I would like to see us make incremental changes that better enable local communities here to, restrict, control, normalize their own behaviors and memberships. That's a great one.
All right. We're almost at the top of the hour. We're going to sneak in one question. I want to just give a comment to everybody that I've been capturing questions that we won't have time for today, and or that might be suited for some of the other execs that we'll be meeting later this week. So if you don't hear your question answered today, we are adding it to the queue for the next 4 days of Meet the Lindens as well. Let's end with this question, a suggestion for you, Philip. How about gather a group of old hands in Second Life that have experience and the view from out of Linden Lab to collect the various ideas. It sounds like trying to leverage the community of people that have great experience in ways that maybe we haven't done in the past. Any thoughts about that, or ways we can leverage the community's collective expertise for the betterment of Second Life?
I'm open to ideas on that. I mean, we've done, I guess a pushback question would be, write down and email me. Yeah, let me answer the question with a question. I don't know a way to fairly pull together a sufficiently broad set of old hands, as was the word used there, and then create a small enough meeting format where we can get actionable, specific ideas that our relatively small team can do out of that. So if you've got a recipe for, hey, Philip, here's a process exactly.
A recipe
here's how
for
we
cake.
choose the people. Here's how we meet. Here's how we vote. Here's how we make decisions. And here's how we, act on the output. Send it to me. I would say that we have tried many different ways of doing that. Sometimes very experimentally, sometimes very formally, and I think we've done a lot of that already. So if you've got a new way that you'd like to see us do that, let me know. But I must say that I have, many more conversations than I can remember with many old hands, quite often about what to do. It's just that the solutions, the engineering costs, et cetera, are complicated. Navigating that is complicated. I see all the FIC references here, and it makes me smile and laugh. That was indeed one of the funniest jokes of early Second Life, the imagined fetid inner core. I love, by the way, that FIC is also friends in common, which I think is kind of a cool.
Yeah, it was
kind of
Prokofy
cool
Neva
wordplay.
that termed.
All right,
fetid
everybody,
inner
this is
core.
just absolutely
Prokofy?
wonderful.
Procky?
Such a pleasure to see everyone.
Sure, Proc has
I've got to
something
go
do with
jump
that.
in a real car in the real world and drive to a real meeting halfway across San Francisco. So wonderful to be here. Thank you, everybody.
I think the meeting's over. That's
See
that.
you
He's
soon.
gone.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks, everyone.
Whoa.
Take care, all.
And there we have it, folks. Let's turn you down. And that was Meet the Lindens. Meet Philip Linden, who's Philip Linden. He basically does what Philip Linden always does. He gives the magical, all-encompassing future view of what Second Life could become. Without dabbling into the technological facts that Second Life is on a depreciated code platform that died in 2017 and is no longer being developed. But those questions will hopefully be answered by the product team, because Second Life does have a big problem. It's still using OpenGL, and OpenGL stopped being updated in 2017 because the OpenGL team quit. So OpenGL's dead. It's a dead platform. And Linden Lab knows it's dead. Vulkan is the only hope, which is basically OpenGL 2.0, essentially. It's the same team that's doing Vulkan that used to do OpenGL. I know because I used to be part of the OpenGL dev team a long, long time ago, folks. That's how old I am. I'm not part of the Vulkan dev team. I decided to step away from game development a long time ago. But hopefully that's a question that the product team, hopefully it's a question that the product team actually decide to answer, because the problem with OpenGL's depreciation is going to haunt Linden Lab unless they do something drastic about the implementation or the future implementation of Vulkan into or over and top of the OpenGL code base. Second Life is going to end up having problems within the next 5 years. Big problems within the next 5 years, especially with the rumours of NVIDIA depreciating, in other words, ignoring in the future any driver updates that may break OpenGL code.
NVIDIA can just ignore it because they're going to depreciate the code at the end of this year. Again, that's another problem that Linden Lab need to face. But yeah, hopefully the product and development team actually answer that. For all the people wondering, I will be live streaming every single one of the Meet the Linden meetings all the way through this week. Unlike SL23B, where I had internet problems, I'm on a new internet provider this year, so things should be fine. And just to remind everyone, Friday the 26th at 10 a.m. at the Funky Monkey Big Stage, I'm going to be there with the Charlie's Angels. I'm going to be DJing 1960s music, and the Charlie's Angels are going to be doing a 1960s fashion show. So I hope to see you all there, and I will see you back here at this channel tomorrow at roughly the same time for the next Meet the Lindens. That's it from me, folks. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a good one.